Yo, welcome back to the channel. In this video today we're going to be going over the Stamina Dragonknight for STONETHORN. So let's go ahead and dive into it. My maximum health is 16.7k. My max stamina is 1.3. My stamina recovery is 1.2. My weapon damage is 3.2. My weapon critical is 57.7. Now keep in mind I am a Khajiit, so you may have to make changes in order to get your health and stamina, or in order to get your health right. But I have 7 points into health and 57 into stamina, and that'll give me 16.7k health. Because you want to be around that 16.5 to 17.5. You don't really need to go over that as a DPS, but you need to be at least 16.5 with food on. The boon that we're running is Shadow. The food we're running is basic dubious Gamorrean. Now, champion points. In the green tree, we have 31 Warlord, 25 Sprinter, 11 Bashing Focus, 64 Tenacity, 64 Mooncalf, 31 Shadow Ward, and 44 Tumbling. Now, when it comes to the green tree as you're leveling up, Mooncalf and Tenacity are your main two. These are the two you should be focusing on first, at least until they're at 64. After that, you have choices. Now, you could work on reduce the cost of sprint or reduce cost of break free if you wanted to. You can get those up a little bit. Bashing focus is just kind of there just in case I'm using the monster set where you have to bash in order to get it to go. I like to reduce the cost a little bit. But Warlord and Sprinter are the main two over here. Now you can focus on them after Tenacity and Mooncalf, or you can throw some into Shadow Ward and Tumbling for the roll dodge and the block cost. Now they're not necessarily a big deal. You can even throw some here into Sneak if you like to sneak around a lot. But the main reason why we have so many over here is because we want this Treasure Hunter passive. This is going to increase the quality of items that we find in chests. Now that could be lot boxes you picked. It could be dungeon chests, trial chests, overland chests. Doesn't matter. If it's a chest you can unlock, you can find better quality items with this. So it's really up to you. Like, even if you want to, starting out, if you only have enough to put the 64 into these, but you have at least 75 points in your green tree, when you go out and farm, or if you're running normal dungeons where you're trying to get a set, by all means you could put some points into you could take those points out and put them into Treasure Hunter over here, and have better chances with those dungeons. But you do have options. Like I said, Tenacity, Mooncalf are your main two, and then after that you could either go with these, Warlord and Sprinter, or you can focus on getting Treasure Hunter. It's really up to you, but by the time you have your champion points fully, I think it's by the time you have your champion points fully leveled up, you should be able to get, you'll be clear to go. Now, in the red tree, we have 27 Quick Recovery, 64 Hardy, 64 Elemental Defender, 40 Ironclad, 37 Medium Armor Focus, and 38 Spell Shield. Now, the red tree is Hardy and Elemental Defender are your first two. It's to help your overall reducing the damage that you take. Hardy is going to reduce the damage from physical poison and disease, where Elemental Defender will reduce the damage from flame, frost, shock, and magic damage. After these two, I would focus on Ironclad, which will reduce the damage you take against direct damage attacks. Mine's a little higher due to the fact that I tend to find myself tanking more than anything when I'm pugging. Either we don't have a tank, or for whatever reason, I usually pull aggro quite a bit. And then Ironclad being the third one. Then after that, you could either throw some points into Medium Armor Focus and Spell Shield to make your character a little tankier, or if you feel like you need some more healing, you can always put some into Quick Recovery. But Hardy, Elemental Defender first, followed by Ironclad, which I would take Ironclad to at least 28 first, and then start focusing on the others if you wanted to. Now, in the blue tree, let me go ahead and circle around here so I can start. We don't have any into here. None. We have 25 Physical Weapon Expert, 51 Master at Arms, 51 Thermometer, 61 Precise Strike, 18 Piercing, and 64 Hardy, or 64 Mighty, my bad. Now, Mighty and Precise Strike, I would say, would be the main two when you're leveling up to begin with. followed by Thermonage, because a lot of your abilities as a DK are dots, and this is going to increase their damage. But Precise Strike and Mighty on any stamina class should be your first two. You want to get them up to where you feel they are respectable, and then focus on Thermonage. Thermonage, you don't have to take all the way to 51. You can honestly, once you get to 40, you can kind of stop there and start focusing on other things. Master at Arms is really nice as well, because this is going to increase the initial hit from the direct damage attack. So the initial burst from Venomous Claw, this is going to increase that damage, to where the Thermometer here will increase the damage over time that it applies after the initial hit. So these two kind of go hand in hand as you level up. Physical Weapon Expert is just there. It's going to increase the damage your light and heavy attacks do in between the rotation. So this could be the last thing you focus on. And then Piercing, just to add a little bit of extra piercing damage. Honestly, if you're anything like me, where as you level up, sometimes you'll have 10 to 15 points before you remember to go in and put your CP point to allocate them. You get these as close as you can to the whole number without closest to the whole number going over. So you want 21.18, but you don't want 20.998. You know what I mean? Because then it's still going to be 20%. So you want to be 21.18, closest to the whole number going over. So, and then, like, let's say you have 1 or 2 points that are basically just going to be go to use. They're going to be useless. You can throw them into piercing, or or if you just don't really care, you can throw it in. It's up to you. But yeah, to reiterate, Mighty, Precise Strikes, your first two, followed by Thermonage, Master at Arms, and then from there you can go Physical Weapon Expert or Piercing, up to you. So, now, sets. The first 5-piece set that let's just go and go over the monster set. The monster set we're running is Celine's. I like this because it gives us... Celine's is one of the hardest hitting sets right now for stamina classes. It's still very good. You get this from Celine's Web. We're running a heavy helmet, Divines with max stamina, and medium shoulders with max stamina. You do want Divines, but I have Invigorating. Nowadays, I just can't really bring myself to transmute shoulders anymore, unless it's just a shoulder piece I'm really having trouble getting. But this is medium. I'm just going to keep going until I get a Divines. This is a 6-1 setup. If you wanted more max health or more max stamina, you could always do the 5-1-1. But as a stamina class, the 6-1 is definitely better than the 5-1-1. Or if you wanted to, you can honestly just go full 7-piece medium. I mean, that would increase your DPS even more. But stats wise, the 6-1 is definitely the better way to go on this. Now, Celine's, what this does is it gives us max stamina, and when we deal melee damage, you have 15% chance to call on a primal spirit that mauls this close enemy in front of you after 1.3 seconds for 16.8 physical damage. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds. Now, you have other options with this. You have Veldreth, which comes with Great Little Shadows. Both of that and Celine's are very nice. You can go with either one of those. But Celine's comes from Celine's Web. Not necessarily a hard dungeon to get on Vet, but Veldreth comes from Cradle of Shadows, which can be a pain to get through. After that, the easiest one to get would be Krogs, which comes from Fungal Grotto 1. That would probably be the easiest one to get. Krogs here, you can go Infuse, Divines, whichever one. It's going to give you physical penetration. When you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to spawn drag limbs that create shockwaves in front of you, dealing 1.7k physical damage every 0.4 seconds for 1.2 seconds. This effect can occur once every 3 seconds. This is the easiest monster set to get, because like I said, it comes from Fungal 1, and it is definitely, it's still strong. I know some players that still use this in game, so it's definitely a monster set worth having. Whether you use it or not, it's still worth having. Now, of course, Celine's Slime Crawl is also not bad, but we run a monster set we run a skill that gives us Minor Berserk, so we don't really need Slime Crawl. Spawn of Mephala here was an interesting setup. I used to run this back in the day when the rotation for a StamDK was kind of like a heavy attack, was like 2 heavy attacks, and then you would repeat the rotation. Because what this would do was that when you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, you create a web for 10 seconds that deals 1.6k poison damage every 1 second to all enemies within 4 meters, and reduce their movement speed by 50%. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. Now, you don't really do that. You don't really do the heavy attack. You can still do that rotation. I mean, it doesn't hurt nothing, but now you get more out of spamming at least one ability. So the heavy attack isn't as great as it was, the rotation. But if you want to throw in a heavy attack every 10 seconds, by all means, you can still run this set. It still does good damage, and it comes with Fungal Grotto too. Now, Storm Fist isn't bad either. It gives you stam recovery, and when you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to create a Thunder Fist to crush the enemy, dealing 1.8k shock damage every 1 second for 3 seconds to all enemies within 4 meters, and a final 10.7k physical damage when the fist closes. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds. Truthfully, this would be the last set I would recommend for a stam DK. You know, it would be right up there with Spawn and Mephala. But Crags, Celine's, Veldreth are all really nice. And honestly, even though they changed the one piece, you can, to spell pin, you can still potentially run Valken Scoria, because when you deal damage for the damage over time effect, you have an 8% chance to summon a meteor. It deals 10.2k flame damage to the target and 4.2 flame damage to all other enemies within 5 meters. This is still really nice for clearing out, you know, for AoE fights and stuff like that. So it's not bad. But due to the one of the 5-piece sets that we're running, I've pretty much swapped this out for Celine's, because now I don't really need that AoE damage from Valken Scoria. Plus, with the one piece being changed from max health to spell pin, you don't really get much out of it. You don't really get anything from that one piece anymore. So yeah. So you do have options with monster sets. So Celine's, Veldreth, I ain't got one in the banker on me. Maybe I got a shoulder. Nope. But basically, it summons 3 disease spores, and they hit for, I think, like 14k, 13 to 14k. It goes off, I think, like every 8-9 seconds. So, now, the first 5-piece that we're running is Venomous Smite. This comes from Greymoor, and it's still a nice set. We're running all divines on the body, all max stamina, and what this set does is it gives us weapon damage, and when we deal critical damage, inflicts Hunter Venom on your enemy for 10 seconds, dealing 2.8k poison damage to your target, enemies within 6 meters of them every 1 second. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. So basically, it's going to be up for 10 seconds and then down for 5 seconds, because we deal critical damage quite a bit. So this goes off quite a bit as well, and you'll see it when it goes off. Wrong button. Like, there it goes. That's that little ring there that you see. That is Venomous Smite, and it's a pretty nice sized ring, so anybody within that center there will take damage. So it is still pretty nice. So it's still worth using. Now, there are other sets that you can use, and I will go over that here shortly. But anyways, let's go ahead. Now, on our back bar, we're running a Maelstrom Bow with a weapon damage intent. I have defending. Infuse is definitely better, but due to the fact that these are now, you can farm these on normal, I'm not really going to bother with transmuting these. I'll wait until I get my perfected bow to transmute, but definitely infused is better. So if you're still low in CP, as soon as you hit 160, go in and just start farming Maelstrom. At least do it once a day till you get the weapons that you need. I would definitely recommend it. And then you can always transmute one of those to infused if it's not infused until you're able to get through and get your perfected Maelstrom bow. But what this does is it's going to increase the damage volley deals by 430 each tick. This bonus increases by 143 every time volley ticks, up to a maximum of 8. It's going to help your DPS tremendously. Just the Maelstrom bow in general, it's going to add 2 to 3k to your DPS. So it's definitely worth getting. Now, okay, so the second 5-piece set that we're running is Scavenging Demise. We're running a Nern Dagger and an infused axe with absorb stamina. The Nern Dagger has a poison damage in check, and we're running jewelry. It's all robust, but you can definitely transmute this to bloodthirsty and infused. Of course, that will give you better DPS, but just starting out robust is fine. We're running it with weapon damage enchant. Now, what Scavenging Demise does, it gives us weapon damage, weapon critical, and we deal critical poison damage to an enemy. Summon the Scavenging Maw, which attacks your enemy after 2 seconds. The Scavenging Maw deals 14.2 poison damage and inflicts minor vulnerability for 15 seconds, increasing their damage taking about 8%. This effect can occur every 10 seconds. So basically, the minor vulnerability stays for 15, but this effect can go off every 10 seconds. So there should be no downtime to minor vulnerability. Now, this comes from Deb's Maltar. Now, on Vet, it can be relatively complicated to get through it on Vet and get your purple jewelry. So you can always farm the Dungeon chest and Greymore, or just purchase the jewelry off the traders, because Venomous is extremely cheap. I don't know why. It's just extremely cheap. You can go with weapons as well and just farm Scavenging Demise and just have it on the body. Because I've seen daggers and axes and good traits for Venomous going for 5 to 10k. At the highest I've seen is at 20k. So all you really need to do is get one infused or one precise, and then get one that can be an off trait and transmute it to Nern. So it doesn't matter if it's the axe or the dagger, as long as the Nern weapon is in your main hand. It's the only thing you got to be sure of. So you can basically farm Depths of Maltar normal to get your body pieces and divines, and just purchase you Venomous Smite, jewelry, or weapons, or just farm it. There's usually tons of people in Western Skyrim where you could probably purchase some of this. Now, extra sets. Now, Demise, it got a buff this patch in STONETHORN. The Maw used to hit for 8.8k. Now it hits for 14.2. So it got a nice little buff, which is why I still run this. But minor vulnerability is great, but if you see you have a Warden healer, or a stam or magical warden with you, or even a warden tank, more than likely they're using Swarm. And if they're using Swarm, whether it's a stamina or magical morph, it's going to put minor vulnerability on the target. So unless they're letting it drop and you see it, or you just still feel comfortable running this, you can switch this set out. Because the damage is nice, but you're really running this for minor vulnerability. Now, sets that you can replace it with, you have Moratong, which is really nice. What this set does, it gives you weapon damage, max stamina, weapon damage, and when you deal direct damage, you cause the enemy to take 10% more damage from your poison and disease attacks for 5 seconds. This is nice. This is a set worth having. I mean, you can replace Venomous Smite with this, you can replace Scavenging Demise with this, and this will do wonders. Now, another set you can have is Deadly. It's a Deadly Strike. Now, a lot of people don't think about this for a DK. Most of the time it is found being ran on a Stamp Sword or Stamp Templar. But Deadly, it's good for a DK as well, because it does increase your poison and disease damage as well by 20%. Damage over time, and channeled abilities by 20%. So it's not just for physical. It does work on bleed, poison, and disease damage over time, and channeled abilities by 20%. So this is really nice. You can, if you don't like Venomous, if you don't like Scavenging Demise, you can run Morag Tong and Deadly Axe, or the Deadly Strike set. You can run these and the 5 pieces by themselves and still do wonderfully and pull. Honestly, I think you pull better DPS with these than you do with Venomous Smite and Scavenging Demise. But I like Scavenging Demise and Deadly Axe, or Scavenging Demise with Morag Tong. Either one of those sets are definitely nice. Venomous Smite is really nice when it comes to clearing out AoE mobs and stuff like that. Single target wise, it's, the poison is still good, but it's not as great as the other sets. Now, there are other sets as well that you can run that I want to bring too. Swamp Raider is really nice this patch. It gives you weapon crit, max down weapon damage, and they buff this. At gold, it will give you an extra 600 weapon damage to your poison and disease damage abilities, and most of the abilities on a Stem DK is poison to begin with. Swamp Raider gives you the most weapon damage to your poison abilities out of any other set. So this is a really nice set as well. This comes from Shadowfen. I guess I should have reiterated on the other ones. This is a PvP set, and so is this. I think they both come from the same place. I'm trying to think off the top. Uh, I know it's not Philastrius where they come from. Uh, I really should know this. I think it comes from. I know you get it from the elite vendor and stuff like that. Either way, I ain't going to harp on it too long because I'm just going to sit here and waste time, and I don't need to do that. But it is a PvP set, and you can get it through alliance points and things like that. I don't think these are the sets you can get with Telfar down in the sewers. But I do think you get them from the one of the cities in Cyrodiil. I can't think of which one off the top of my head right now. I'm sorry. I'll post what it is in the description. So, but anyways, Swamp Raider is a really nice set as well. This comes from Shadowfen, very easy set to get. Briarheart is also a really lovely set. It gives you weapon crit, max down weapon crit, and when you deal critical damage, when you deal critical damage, you increase your weapon damage for 435 for 10 seconds while it's active. Your critical strike heals you for 337 health. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. So this gives you a nice little boost to your weapon damage. Now, if you want to stick to the AoE damage from like Venomous Might, Azura's Blight is a nice set as well. It gives you weapon crit, max down, stam recovery, and when you do damage with a damage over time effect, you apply a stack of Blight Seed at your target for 15 seconds. At 20 stacks, the Blight Seed explodes, dealing 14k disease damage to the target and nearby enemies. An enemy can only have one instance of Blight Seed applied at a time, and any enemy that has reached 20 stacks cannot be infected with Blight Seed for 2 seconds. Now, this comes from Lair. This is a really good AoE set as well. You can run this as well. It's not bad for the trash pools as well. But I know I normally don't like to highlight trial sets here, but I really want to highlight this set, the Poisonous Serpent set. This comes from Hellraw. It got a nice little buff in STONETHORN as well. It gives us max stamina, weapon damage, and max stamina. But when you deal damage with a light attack or a heavy attack against the enemy who has a poison of damage ability on them, you deal an additional 4.9k poison damage. Effect can occur once every 2 seconds. So basically 5k when you're fully buffed and you're going through it in dungeons. This will be higher. Of course, all these will be normally higher because your weapon damage will be higher, fully buffed. But this is an awesome set, and all you gotta do is light attack. So every other ability, they're going to take 5k poison damage. And due to the fact that almost all of our abilities are poisoned to begin with, there's no reason why this would not be able to proc. This comes from Hellraw, and it's not a set a lot of people want. This at one point, I think I want to say this was a 50% chance, but now they've removed that 50% chance, and it will always happen every 2 seconds. So Hellraw is a really easy dungeon to get into, or not a dungeon, but a trial. So, but this, if you want to look at a set, this is a really good set to have. Plus, it kind of makes you want to auto attack, weave, and stuff like that. So, any of these sets that I've shown are viable replacements that can all work. I usually like to go with any of them with Scavenging Demise, Moraton, Deadly Strike, Briarheart, Swamp Raider. I've tried them all. And I really love them all with Scavenging Demise. The only time I replace Scavenging Demise is if I say I have a Warden with me. So, but outside of that, that is just my personal opinion. You can really go with any of those sets on a Stam DK, and you will not go wrong. So, skills. Our main spammable is Venomous Claw. We rack an enemy with your rake. Oh, what was wrong with me? You rake an enemy with your claw, dealing 4.4k poison damage and additional 15.5 poison damage over 14 seconds. Poison seeps into a target, deals increased damage the longer it lasts, dealing 20% more damage every 2 seconds. Enemies hit by the initial hit are affected with the poison status effect. Now, this is our main spammable, but you can definitely use this one as well. It costs a little more to use, but the initial hit is harder. And of course, this is going to do more damage the longer it waits. But to me, Venomous Claw just feels more... It feels better to use it as the spammable than Noxious Breath. But whichever one works for you, you can definitely go with. And what this does, it exhales a Corrosive Blast to enemies in front of you, dealing 6.8k poison damage and additional 12k poison damage over 14 seconds. Also afflicts the enemy with Major Fracture and reducing their physical resistance by 5.2. Stone Giant. Crushed earth beneath you, dealing 8.8k physical damage to all enemies within 6 meters of you. Debris ripped from the ground is held around you for 12 seconds. Activating the ability again allows you to launch part of the debris at an enemy, dealing 8.8k physical damage up to 3 times. The final cast stuns for 3 seconds. Each hit applies stagger increase in damage taken by 65 per stack for 6 seconds. Now, I see a lot of people using this as the spammable. This is not the spammable. You use this just about every 3 seconds. That's it. Now, it lasts for 6 seconds, so you can definitely go higher than that. But you have 3 debris, and it lasts for 12 seconds. So I like to throw it out every 3 seconds. But you can do 4 seconds, but sometimes it messes up, because it only lasts for 12 seconds. So at 4 seconds, it's definitely pushing it. So every 3 seconds, so it'd be 3, 6, 9, and then basically on that 3 second, you would basically recast. So that's kind of how I use it. So, Barb Trap. When triggered, the trap deals 4.4k physical damage and an additional 15.9 physical damage over 18 seconds and grants you minor force, increasing your critical damage by 10% for the duration. This is why we have this. We have this here because of the Fighter's Guild passive as well. But we really want the minor force from this. That's why we run this and this. This is kind of here. For the second ability, while Sergeant, you gain Major Savagery, increase your weapon critical rating by 2.1. You also gain Minor Berserk for 5 seconds. After you deal critical damage from an enemy's flank, increase your damage done by 8%. This is why we don't use Slime Crawl. Now, if you're not using this, by all means you can use Slime Crawl, and also, you won't get that Minor Berserk if your healer is casting Combat Prayer. It's the same effect, they're not going to stack. But still, it's still nice to have it here for the Fighter's Guild passive, which gives us an extra 3% for each Fighter's Guild ability we have on our bar. We have this as well. Dawnbreaker. Arm yourself from Rio's second sword and dispense a retribution, deal 11k physical damage to enemies in front of you, and an additional 13.2 physical damage over 6 seconds. After activating, your weapon damage is increased by 300 for 20 seconds. This is not... We don't tend to use this one as much because it costs it's 125. Our main ultimate is on the back bar. You're usually going to start a fight with the Standard Might, which is on the back bar. But if you want to, you can start using Dawnbreaker after that. It will increase your initial weapon damage and stuff like that. So by all means, you can do that. But for the most part, you're looking to use Standard Might. I know in dungeons and stuff like that, Dawnbreaker on the second run might be better than the Standard Might, but on the initial Standard Might is the better. But anyways, Poison Injection. Shoot an arrow coated in Madeira poison and an enemy, dealing 3.8k poison damage and an additional 7.7 poison damage over 10 seconds. Deals up to 100% more damage to enemies under 50% health. Basic, pretty standard. Endless Hell. This lasts 14 seconds. Launch multiple arrows into the sky to rain down, dealing 1.2k physical damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second for 12 seconds after a 2-second delay. Now, Maelstrom makes this hit a whole lot harder. That's why we have this for 14 seconds. We're running Endless Hell. You can also run Arrow Barrage if you want to, but it only lasts for 10 seconds, so it does kind of make the rotation a little bit more complicated to pull everything off. You could probably get away running the heavy attack rotation in there with Arrow Barrage, but I like Endless Hell. Vigor. Let loose a battle cry and stealing yourself with resolve and healing for 12.7k health over 4 seconds. This is just our heal. Igneous Weapon. Charge you and your grouped allies' weapons with volcanic power to gain Major Brutality and Sorcery, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20% for 54 seconds. This basically allows us not to have to use weapon power pods, because we get Major Savagery here, and we get Major Sorcery and Major Brutality here. I also like running this because, when you get in them groups and you see you've got an under 50 character, or you have someone who's CP 100, 200, 300, they might not have Major Sorcery in general. So this right here will make sure that they have that Major Brutality or Major Sword, because it works for your group. It also makes the tank heals stronger, his own heals, or whatever he's putting out. It makes his stuff a little better. It makes the healers a little better, and it makes it easier on you. Now, if you see that this isn't necessarily needed, I do not have it here, but you can always put Inferno on your back bar. You would morph it. I got the points. That's why it is. You can always use this. Flames of Oblivion. It's going to grant. It's going to also going to grant major savagery while slot hits an additional. Doesn't necessarily matter if we have a major savagery from our camouflage stunner, but while active, you're going to deal some flame damage. 2 enemies every 5 seconds, doing 5.5k flame damage. The ability scales with your highest offensive stat. So this isn't bad to have either. If you're using weapon powered pots, or you know for a fact the people you're running with don't need major brutality or major sorcery, put Flames of Oblivion here. It's not going to hurt nothing. It's absolutely good to have. But for the most part, I've noticed in most pickup groups, there's the damage always seems to go better when I have Igneous Weapon on my bar to help them. I'm just messing up left. I can't put my bar back for nothing. I've just noticed that the groups tend to go faster when I have Igneous Weapon on my bar. Now, because I know I'm still putting out a good bit of damage with what I'm running, so this is just going to help my allies. So even if you go down, they're still going to keep the buff until that 54 seconds is up. So it's worth having, at least. So I tend to go in dungeons with this setup. If I notice that it's a sorcerer using Critical Surge, then I just go ahead and I swap it out as soon as I get the chance. You know, Camouflage Stunner, same on the front bar. We have it double stacked, just for the Fire Skill passive as well. I mean, you can put Barb Trap back here if you wanted to. Doesn't matter. It's still there. Standard Might. The main ultimate that we're going to use, that we're going to start off my fights with, is Call Down a Battle Standard, dealing 3.4k flame damage every 1 second for 20 seconds to enemies, and apply Major Defile to them, reducing their healing received and health recovered by 30%. Standing in the air increases your damage done and reduces damage taken by 15%. An ally near the standard can activate the Shackle Synergy, dealing 8.3k flame damage to enemies in the area and mobilizing them for 5 seconds. Now, when it comes to most things, you're going to buff up. That's it. That's all your buff up for this. If you wanted to, look at the full stats. So, buff, pop our weapon, switch to our front bar. We're looking at 4.5k weapon damage, 1.4k stam recovery. So, that's self-buffed. So, of course, you know, that weapon damage proc is going to go off pretty standardly. So there you go. Of course, that can get higher as well if you, let's go ahead and hit this, Dawnbreaker. Our weapon damage is 4.9, almost 5k. So, almost 5k without a low spell power cure or anything else. So, it's not bad. Now, when it comes to using Standard Might, it's one of those abilities that, because it's going to increase your damage by 15%. So when you use it, you want to use your abilities first. Wrong button. And you want to go in. So about the second rotation as you're going, you know, you'll rotate over, Poison Inject, drop the Standard Might. I don't have the ultimate, and then repeat the rotation over. So you would then, you know, so starting your second rotation, before you swap back to your front bar, drop the Standard Might then. So that way you already have all your dots down. Noxious Breath is on, Venomous Claw is on, so that way they take more. Because if you go in instantly and drop the Standard Might and then start putting it down, you're going to have a few seconds to where you don't really have your dots down. Now you have your dots up fully, and now everything is going. So it's going to be a huge difference in the DPS if you wait until about the second rotation to drop the Standard Might. So just keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to rotation in general, you know, you're going to start, go ahead, Barb Trap, Endless Hell, Poison Injection, Noxious Breath, Venomous Claw. Well, you're going to use your Giant Fist, and then you're going to spam Venomous Claw. You're going to be able to get off about 2, and then repeat. And that's kind of all there is to it. You're going to keep your dots up. It just takes, it's not really that complicated. It's a really simple static rotation. So just Endless Hell, Poison Injection, Stone Fist, Noxious Breath, Venomous Claw. You're going to get off a couple of 3 Venomous Claws, so throw a Giant Fist, bar swap, Endless Hell, repeat the rotation. And reapply Barb Trap every 2 rotations. Sometimes I even mess up. So it's really simple. It's really easy. Doesn't take long. And of course, as you get better, you can animation cancel. You know, there was no canceling in that. Overall, the setup in its general is not. It's about a 31k setup for the most part, but there are definitely better sets. This is a nice little easy build to get. Celine's or Scavenging Demise is definitely nice no matter what setup you use. But Venomous Jack is a set that is more clearing out trash. Better sets are definitely Briarheart, Swamp Raider, Aphinium Jack, or Poisonous Serpent, Moatong, Deadly Axe. You will get all better DPS than with Venomous Smite, but Venomous Smite is still nice for clearing out trash mobs, because outside of Endless Hell and Noxious Breath, we don't have much in the way of AoEs. So, it definitely, Venomous Smite definitely helps to clear room, but you can complete most dungeons. You shouldn't have any problems. I've done a lot of stuff with this setup, but going in more into in-game, Venomous Smite is the set that you're probably going to want to replace. Scavenging Demise, if they don't have wardens, you can run this. I've ran this in a few setups for a few trial groups because either we didn't have a warden healer, we didn't necessarily have wardens, because wardens are not the best when it comes to DPS. They're really not. We were running a Nightblade off tank, things like TK May tank, Nightblade off tank. We had a healer, was a Templar and a Necromancer. No warden DPS. For whatever reason. So this was still a nice set to have there because it gave us the minor vulnerability. So this is a nice set to have in general. But as a replacement to Venomous Jack, Briarheart, Aphinium Venom, or Deadly Strike, Moratong would be my main choices. I would still keep this set no matter what. So, but yeah, that is pretty much the setup. If you enjoy it, let me know. If you don't, let me know. If you like a certain setup on your DK, let me know. As always, take care and have fun.